and he has the ability offensively and defensively to really play four positions on the floor. You're talking about a player who's made 157 three balls in his college career. He's capable of a double-double on any given night. So just from an experience standpoint, a versatility standpoint, the ability to stretch the floor out with shooting and passing. And he really wanted to be here. He's excited. He got his paperwork in first thing this morning. He's on the West Coast, 2 hours different. I barely woke up out of bed, and basically his paperwork was done as quickly as possible, and then moving on to Jalen Tate at 6'6", to have a guy that can play the point guard position with his length, his defensive ability. You're talking about, at the Division I level, being the Defensive Player of the Year, three-time All-Defensive Player in his conference. Every year he's played college basketball, he's been on the All-Defensive team. Somebody that we felt losing Jimmy Witt's ability to guard the best player on the other team, whether it's a 1, 2, or 3. Jalen now allows us to do that. He's a very good rebounder for his position. So I think he also gives us great flexibility, just as Jimmy Witt did, and just like Caleb and Cody Martin did for us at Nevada. And then obviously, Devontae Davis is a guy that can play both guard spots and has great length, and a guy that's been committed and excited all the way back from November, and somebody that's got great pride in being a Razorback player. So, both the new guys, Vance and Jalen, they've been asking for their paperwork for several days and had to wait until this morning to get it. They were excited to sign. They want to be here. They've handled everything with great professionalism, incredible maturity. They've shown leadership throughout the process on how they deal with us. They pick up the phone every time we call them. Both guys return every text message. We've had in-depth conversations about not only basketball but life as well. They've asked a ton of questions about things like they should, and we're excited about all three of these guys.
Hey, with Vance looking up your last year at Nevada, I think you guys were 14-0, ranked 6th going into Albuquerque, and he had I wrote down here, 18 points, 10 boards, 7 assists, 3 steals. Pretty good game. What kind of impression did that make on you, and how much did that make you want to add him to your team now?
Yeah, off that particular team, Bob, obviously we were rolling, being undefeated in the top, 10 in the country. We felt like his versatility was the only player in our conference at the time that could match our guys' versatility, because, we had 4 guys that could kind of play 4 positions, and Vance kind of, negated that. He's been known to step up in big games. Obviously, New Mexico's biggest game that year was when we went in there. They had their biggest crowd of the year. He stepped up against a ranked team and dominated the game. And it's interesting because when he verbally committed, I would say 7 to 8 of the guys off the Nevada team, had texted me that particular day, because our guys had tremendous respect for him, and then just what he's done in the Mountain West tournament in Las Vegas. He's even got a nickname for how he's performed in Vegas, in conference tournament settings.
What's the nickname?
I think it's Vegas Vance, but I guess somebody'd have to look it up.
Okay, I'll look that up. Well, I've got 27 more questions, but I'll defer and let go back.
You won't believe that it's only 27, Bob.
Well,
I don't either.
Nate, do you have any questions?
Yeah. Eric, I guess just with adding Vance and then with who you may also add and having Connor, just with the size, how differently do you think you'll be playing in style next year as compared to how you played this year, so small?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously just, you look at the team makeup and we are going to be bigger, we're going to be stronger. But we still want to play. We still want to play with pace, and I think that when you look at like Connor and Vance, like up front, we'll probably, even though we're much bigger, we will shoot more threes. At least at the 5 spot with Connor and obviously Vance being more of a traditional 4-man than we played last year. He's going to take a lot of threes at that position as well.
And as far as just the kind of multiple point guards, so you talked about maybe playing Isaiah some at point. Is that still in your, what you plan on doing? Is working him some at point guard as well?
No, I think Isaiah will be, he's, again, I mean, he's still, he and his family still have, discussions about testing the waters and so, I mean, right now, I'm sure that, the focus is probably on that decision-making process. And, I think that for sure we want Isaiah, if he comes back, we want Isaiah to be in more ball-handling situations. But, I think he can do that at that off-guard spot as well. But we want to put Isaiah in more pick-and-roll situations and more isolation-type things that we use Mason with. But I don't think necessarily at the point because, we use Mason at that point forward, but he really wasn't a point guard. Jimmy was our point guard, and I think that, with Jalen and JD and Devo, I mean, I think we have multiple guys that can do that for us right now.
And also with Mason, anything, I mean, is there any chance of him coming back, or do you feel he's definitely, I guess he hasn't hired an agent yet, but are you kind of counting him as not coming back at this point?
Yeah, I mean, we're proceeding as if, it's from all indications, it sounds like, that's the challenge that he's looking towards, but, I think we kind of supply the feedback that we've gotten from NBA teams to Mason and his family, and then it's up to them. And we've done all the research that we can do up to this point. Have talked to 23 NBA teams, supplied them the information, and we support all of our guys in any of their professional aspirations, and we're behind them 100%, whatever decision they make, and the only thing that we can do is provide information through our many contacts that we have.
I appreciate it. I think that's all I got.
Jordan, do you have any questions?
Yeah, hey, Russ. When you look at the grad transfer portal, you obviously got, traditional transfers, you got 5 guys last year, 2 this year. Spring signing used to be sort of a supplementary part of recruiting, and now it's almost like front-end recruiting because you can build a roster, and with so much transient nature of it, you're almost sometimes replacing half the roster. Do you think the strategy that you've had in the last couple of years at Arkansas kind of puts Arkansas ahead of the curve because of the outreach and how much attention Arkansas gets on social media, even from the national recruiting analysts who have Arkansas's name nearly in every tweet that goes out about transfers?
I mean, I think that, the nature and the complexion of college athletics with the transfer market have kind of changed. It's even like this year, it's more competitive on the transfer market than it was last year. And, certainly 4 years ago, it was not difficult at all for us to get transfers because we were a little bit ahead of a lot of programs, especially a lot of Power Fives. Now, all Power Fives are recruiting transfers, and certainly there's been talk of potential new rule changes coming either in the very near future or in the future, and that's going to change the landscape even more dramatically, where you're going to be building rosters almost annually. And so, that's just kind of, it's not just basketball. It's going to happen in all sports. And so I think that having a pulse on that is extremely important, because it's just as important as any other way that you would recruit or try to get talent, to your roster.
Thank you.
Anything all you got?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Hutch?
Yeah, Coach, Jalen was hurt when Northern Kentucky played y'all earlier this season, but did you get to see him on film at all when you were preparing for that game, or did you have any familiarity with him before recruiting him during this process?
Yeah, Hutch, with all of our guys, when we play a team, we always prepare. Even if a guy's injured, we always meet as a staff and go through strengths and weaknesses, or I should say, not the whole staff, but myself and one or two guys will go over every player, even the injured players. We were extremely concerned whether he would play or not. We thought he was so dangerous in so many different areas, whether it was a defensive disruptor, or whether it was his ability to dribble drive. We knew he could make a three. So, yes, we did prepare as if he was going to play. And so I think that helped from a familiarity standpoint. Once he entered the portal, we knew right away that he was going to be our top target, at that position.
Yeah, that kind of leads me to my second question. Vance, you had a first-hand experience. You've already talked about playing him. But, does it make it easier or more comfortable to recruit a transfer whenever you've had that up-close and personal experience against them?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. I think that, just as an NBA team, when they evaluate for the draft, they would much prefer to watch a guy live. And live eyeballs tell a lot more of the story, certainly than watching on tape. On tape, you really can't tell how quick a guy is, or you're not quite as sure. You can't tell how tall somebody. Like, I know exactly what Vance Jackson is. I feel because we were trying to prepare for Jalen Tate that it certainly helped tremendously in the evaluation process, I guess.
Mm-hmm. The last one I have now, what was this process like recruiting these guys with the virus, not being able to have guys in for visits, and was it any different this year than years past?
It was certainly different than the last 2 years, because the last 2 years, transfer stuff has turned into much like the high school, where you have in-home visits, you fly, meet with the transfer. My first 2 years at Nevada, that was not the case. We could basically pick up the phone, have several conversations, kind of explain our, who we are, what we were all about, and still be able to land a transfer, maybe even without a visit. But certainly that has not been the case the last 2 years. But, you've got to get creative. You've got to be able to show your prospective recruit everything you possibly can without them showing up. And certainly it's been an effort by a lot of different people putting things together in a very, very, very short amount of time. And I think that we're on equal ground, if not further ahead than most people, because of the work ethic of, the stuff that Coach Mosier's done, the stuff that Pat Eckerman's done, and Michael Musselman, and Anthony Rudin, Hayes Myers, like those guys in particular have just been in grinding and trying to come up with video footage of virtual things, and we've gotten help from the marketing department. They've been incredible, and from the sports information department. So it's been a full family affair to try to put together. We didn't know this was this just kind of happened, and all of a sudden you're recruiting without unofficial visits and without official visits and without doing in-home visits. So certainly it dramatically changed the game, and we've been involved in so many different recruits since our season ended, and the feedback we've gotten, even if it's with players that have gone elsewhere, or even if it's been exploratory conversations and we've kind of decided to go in a different direction, the feedback we've gotten has been really, really positive on how we've gone about conducting recruiting with the virus.
All right, that's all I got for now, Coach. Thanks.
Thanks, bud.
Trent.
Hey, Coach. I have kind of a similar question as Andrew, but just a little more timeline-based. So when you're hitting refresh, your staff's hitting refresh on the transfer portal, and Jalen Tate and Vance Jackson's names pop up, what is the next step after that in recruiting? I guess from that point of seeing their name to when they actually sign today. Like what is the next step after seeing their names?
Yeah, I mean, the first step is, when we, at least for us, I don't know how other people do it, but we have our own internal email that, we look up the stats, look up where he's from. We have our own, I don't know how to word it, we have our own statistical eval, Moneyball type, the Oakland A's, our own analytics where we try to plug in the number that player's at, and then how that would forecast into the SEC. And then I watch film, and then we reach out, in the portal. The way what they usually, the information you're given is usually an email, and you email, or you try to get a hold of a high school coach or somebody that you might know. To try to track down a player's number, and then from there you just, some guys are very interested, some guys text back, some guys email back, some you never hear from. We feel like, the interaction, or at least getting a hold of the transfer, it's pretty documented. We've gotten a hold of most of the top guys and had conversations and been in the arena with them, at least.
And Coach, you've got some guys that are still unsigned right now, but it looks like at the least that you'll have 9 players who haven't played an actual game as a Razorback next year. Have you been in a situation like that? You might have been in the NBA or something, but in college, have you been in a situation like that?
Yeah, I think it's really similar to even after our first year at Nevada. I'd have to go back and look it up, but again, I'm only guessing that you guys do way more better research than me, but I'm going to assume it's pretty much the same thing as far as number of guys and certainly when you plan ahead, we didn't, 12 months ago we didn't plan ahead, and think, we'd have guys testing the waters and so there's a lot of factors that go into building a roster, but certainly it's not just us. You can look at other programs in our own conference with coaching staffs that have been in place for quite some time, and the turnover on those rosters, the number of players that have put their name in the draft. There's only one draft, so there's going to be a lot of guys not drafted. Just based on the numbers of guys that are putting their name in, there's no longer nine rounds in the NBA. So There's just this kind of a nature of college basketball right now.
And last question for now, just on Isaiah and Mason, as far as testing NBA waters, I guess, and just from your vantage point from being, on the different levels and in the NBA, how difficult is it going to be on those guys? Because it looks like, I don't know if you pay attention to mock drafts, but it looks like on mock drafts they need to move up a little bit. Obviously, everybody's trying to move up, but how difficult is it for them if they can't have those personal workouts or things like that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think our big thing is just trying to, obviously there's the mock drafts that are, that are online that people can read, and then NBA teams have their own mock drafts, and there's, a really, really, I thought an informative couple of tweets about the Charlotte D-League team and the accolades that the players on their D-League team have. And, I think that's something that, really interesting for players to read, what that particular one G-League team looks like. And you're talking about guys that Final Four MVPs and defensive players of the year in their conference and players of the year in their conference, and they're in the D-League. It's, I know how hard it is to make an NBA team. Having coached it, I know how hard it is when you're in the G League to get a call up. Again, I think that as a coach, like our job, it's not just myself that can get information, but Clay Mosier spent the last 7 years out of the last 8 years, 7 of his years were in the NBA. So he certainly has direct contacts with people for information. Earl Boykins, played over 10 years in the NBA. Earl's got great contacts. And then it's up to, Coach Ruda was in the G League, so it's up to us to call our contacts and supply the information to the particular player. And, look, we've been through this with 3 guys at Nevada, and they all came back. They listened. They dissected the information. They came back, and it worked out really well for them. 2 of them are in the NBA. 1 of them's in the G League. Another player, we supplied the information. He made his own decision. He's playing in Australia. So it's, it's as a coach, you supply the information and you support your guys. And, basically everybody on a college roster wants to play in the NBA. And, as a coach, you support them and you try to help them, and you can call NBA teams and promote guys and get feedback. And that's really what we've tried to do over the last few weeks while we've been recruiting guys.
Thanks, Coach. That's all I've got for now.
Debbie?
Hey, Coach. It's been over a year now, and you've had a chance to go out and see a lot of Arkansas high school basketball. Can you talk about the level of play there and the amount of prospects that you seem to have to, in-state to go after?
Yeah, man. I certainly, this class, is a really talented class. Obviously, I'm not sitting here with compliance, so I don't know how much more I can go into. But I think, every state, has, certain years where it's really good. And then, and certainly in this state, when you look over the next 3 years, there's, there's two really great classes, and this is one, and then there's another one coming up soon, and so I think it's important that we get out, we evaluate as much as possible, we continue to make as many contacts as we can, communicate with high school coaches, whether it's through letters, whether it's through inviting them to practice, whether it's seeing them in November or seeing them in September. when we're allowed to go out. So I think there's a multitude of things involved in high school recruiting in the state, and we feel like we've developed a lot of really good relationships with high school and AAU guys, and so we just need to continue to do that as we get ready for year 2.
Also, just a general question about prep school. When kids leave high school and go to prep school and are playing against Division I players, not only in practice but in the games as well, how do you think that develops their game?
Yeah, again, I think a lot of like success at the collegiate level comes down to, especially with young players, is understanding the work ethic involved. Practices are different. Certainly, going against top level talent can help players and can help them understand, the level of competition and so forth. But there's a lot of great, some of the best coaches I've ever seen are coaches that coach at small schools, and they do an incredible job of getting their teams to play hard and getting their players to understand. So, I think it'd be too broad just to talk about a prep school against a high school, because again, some of my very best friends are coaching at smaller high schools and might not have college players year in and year out, but they might do a better job than a lot of college coaches in preparing young kids for life and understanding work ethic and being on time. And there's just so many factors that go into programs, whether it be a high school program or a prep program.
Appreciate it, and by the way, I won't be putting on that Padres cap anytime soon.
What's that?
I said I won't be putting on that Padres cap anytime soon.
I got one for you. I got a visor for you.
Scotty?
Yeah, I wanted to go back to Devant for just a minute. I'm curious how that process with him went, because he was, I think, in the portal for like 2 days. Jumped on board with you guys pretty quick. What was that time period like?
Yeah, Scotty, I think it's unique because, he's one of the very few players that when he transferred from UConn, we recruited him really hard at Nevada. Obviously, he was a Los Angeles, player who went to UConn. Nevada and California are close. We felt like that was, we had recruited a lot of guys out of L.A., so we recruited him hard. And then obviously, for Vance, he went in conference. He didn't come to Nevada, but he went to a school in our conference, and so we played him twice a year. I think that he, saw the success of the team and the success of some individual players. If we had not recruited him, at Nevada, or if we had not had a personal relationship, the process probably would have taken a lot longer. We probably, I don't know if we would have gotten a player 6'9" with his versatility. But he knew guys from the Nevada team that he could reach out directly to. I didn't even know the first day that went in the portal. I didn't even know he was talking to some of our Nevada players until after the fact. And he verbally committed, and then some of the guys from Nevada started telling me that that they had talked to him. And so I think just playing in league, he could gather a lot more intel than just what we were saying to him. And I think when a player talks to another player, it probably carries a lot more weight than even a coach talking, because players they give each other true, real feedback on stuff. And so I think Vance knew that he wanted to come to a program that played a certain style as well.
I appreciate it.
Bye, Bob.
Okay, I don't have 27 or whatever, but I just I think I read somewhere that there were 500 guys in the transfer portal, and based on high risers or whatever side that is, they'd always say so and so's got blah 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 in Arkansas on their list. So how many guys did you evaluate? Would you say 25, 30? Would that be an accurate ballpark figure?
Maybe in a week. No,
how many guys totally you reached out to just to check?
I mean, we reached out to anyone that we thought was an SEC roster caliber player. And we kind of divide things up. Bob, is he a roster level player? Is he a rotation player? Is he a starter? Is he a top 2 or 3? And so, and then obviously reaching out to a player to talk to him about, try to figure out his love for the game, to try to figure out what his expectations are in his next stop. There's a lot of things that have to align, for you to go all in on somebody, and certainly an exploratory phone call. We don't offer players that are transfer scholarships. We don't call them and say, hey, you have an Arkansas offer. With transfers, we have communication with guys. Then we decide if we want to make a second call and a third call. And then eventually it gets to the point of, hey, could you see yourself playing here? We've been in top 10s and had 1 or 2 conversations with the guys. So, some more realistic than others, and we don't put those lists out. Obviously, the players do. So, but certainly, it's our job to explore every high school, every guy that's playing on the AAU circuit. It's our job to evaluate them. It's our job to try to talk to as many as we can and try to see which guys fit.
With Vance and Jalen, you said you kind of rank guys as roster guys, rotation guys, potential. Both guys as potential starters.
I mean, I'd probably rather not go into that now, but yeah, we certainly feel like both those guys have been starters their whole career. And we certainly feel like they are talented and should could be guys that start for sure. Yeah, I mean, but there's no. I mean, having said that, I mean, everything's done in training camps, and jobs are won when guys compete against each other. But both those guys have been starters throughout their career.
Yeah. And then with Isaiah, I guess it's still got 10 days to declare for the draft. Do you know, has he definitely not declared for the draft, or do you expect him to declare just if there's nothing else to test the waters, or where do you think he is in that front?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, with Isaiah, that he and his family are talking, and I'm talking to Isaiah and to his family, and I would expect him to probably test the waters. That would be my gut feeling, but again, I think that's the timing or whatever is really up to Isaiah. He and his dad, we've communicated with them on feedback stuff, and they have great questions. They're really thinking through the process, and they're asking all the right questions, and if we send them stuff, they call back and ask if we can dig a little further, and right now just phenomenal communication between Derek and Isaiah, in regards to the NBA stuff. Really phenomenal communication.
Do you get a sense from Isaiah and his family if he's leaning coming back or leaning to the NBA, or what sense do you get?
Yeah, I mean, really, Bob, I mean, our thought is that, when at this particular time of the year, he's certainly a player that he, like if he wants to explore this thing, then I think you explore it and you do as much research, and you don't put odds on coming back. You just focus on the process, and then at some point you make a decision whether you stay in or you come back. And again, I mean, like I want not just Isaiah, but like I want our other guys to know, like, when you go through this process with us, that we've been through it with a lot of guys in a very, very short amount of time. And there's got to be a trust factor on what's best for the particular player. And so our job is just to try to, like I've stated over and over, is just to try to get as much information from, Coach Mosier might have 3 people that he knows with one organization, and I might have 2 other people that I know. Coach Ruda might know their G League guy. So we're just trying to gather as much info as we can, and not just get the feedback from the NBA undergraduate committee that they have resources here that I think make us a lot different from some other places because of contacts and stuff.
And then with this kind of off topic, I guess, with the Bulls docket coming out here Sunday, I have you were coaching the NBA the first year that Jordan and the Bulls won their title, and then the last year. I was just wondering, what do you remember about coaching against those teams, and what that was like?
Yeah, I mean, just great length in the backcourt. The size of guys like, I mean, it wasn't just MJ, but Harper, and then their up front guys, even that people don't really talk about, whether it was Sellers or Rodman, and I mean, just Tony Kukoc. I mean, they were just so long. They executed the triangle offense so well, and you took away a first or second option, and the triangle offense had 4 and 5 and 6 options, rather than a lot of NBA sets that maybe break down after 2 options. And then you add in the fact that Jordan could go get his own shot at any time. And then I think anybody that ever went into Chicago and played as a road team, just the pregame introductions, it's not often that there could be an intimidation factor at the NBA level in introductions, but that is the one building that when Jordan's name was called and the music was playing and their PA announcer had such a distinct voice that everybody in the basketball world recognized. I mean, it was the one spot that, when you went in there, you could feel the dominance of that team.
And so Scottie Pippen, you didn't mention him. What was like Scottie Pippen?
Yeah, I mean, again, just so many weapons. I mean, Pippen was, everybody talks about positionless basketball and how it's new to the game and how the Warriors created positionless basketball. No, positionless basketball was created back with the Chicago Bulls. Pippen being that number, I mean, he still to this day might be the number one guy when you think of positionless basketball, because he literally played the 1 to the 5. He could bring the ball up the floor. He could guard a center. The ultimate, Robin to Batman with MJ.
And I've had one more question. You put another video out the other day. I thought actually that was the funniest one. Whose idea was that? And it was obviously very self-deprecating because you were playing the fan who would be critical of all the things you do. I don't know too many coaches, if any others that would do that. Who came up with that, and what was that like, kind of poking fun at yourself?
That was actually, Pat Eckerman came up with the first idea in the empty practice, but that one was actually me. We were doing a virtual tour and filming some stuff, and we were in an empty arena. And originally my idea was to sit on a couch and watch a game as a fan in my home while on my TV screen we had a Arkansas game going. And then I just said, hey, film this real quick, and did it in the one take, and everybody liked it better than the idea of doing it in my living room on a couch. So I'll take credit for that idea, actually, Bob. Most of them were somebody else, but that one was on me.
And have you actually heard fans? I mean, I'm sure you're into the game, so maybe you don't even pay attention to what fans might yell. But have you heard fans yell stuff like that, like substitute or call timeout or that stuff you did in the video? Have you actually heard people say that?
I don't. Me personally, I don't hear anything, but my wife actually likes to sit in the stands rather than sit in the suite. She likes to feel the pulse of the game and feel the pulse of the fans and feel the emotion. And then obviously, my two sons, one on the bench and one that sits in the stands, and my daughter's a parrot sometimes and will repeat what she hears. And Danielle's pretty critical. Like, she'll tell me, like, hey, even the guy next to me asked why you didn't call a timeout. So I know all that stuff is real. I know it's being said. I don't hear it. But, yeah, I just wanted to have fun and just say, hey, yeah, I know this is out there. And then obviously some of the other comments about if we win the jump ball, we're going to win the game. Obviously that's just poking fun at, somebody that really doesn't understand what goes into the game as well.
Did you ever, like in high school, did you ever do acting or something?
I've never really done acting, but I guess with these videos, maybe that's my next career.
Maybe you can be up for the Twitter Emmys or something. Okay, that's all I got.
All right, Bob, thank you. William Plot 27, I counted 23.
Okay, well, I can try to think of 4 more if you want.
Well, yeah, I'm going to open everybody up here. We've probably got time for maybe 2 more. Does anybody have...
Unmuted.
Eric, as far as just with having more, looks like, greater numbers, particularly if, let's say, and Isaiah does come back, do you play more people with that setup? And you talked about really relying just on, 7, 8 guys tops. Would that change how you play?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that every coach should adapt to the roster they have. I think every year your team takes on a new identity. When I coached in the G League, we played 10 guys on basically every night. We went 10 guys. I did it all the way back in the old CBA. I did it in the USBL because we felt like all 10 of those guys were all pretty equal in talent. So I think once we get into training camp, I think players earn their minutes. Coaches don't give out minutes. Players earn minutes, and players earn their role based on, how they perform in practice, how they perform in scrimmage settings, and so what roles, are kind of formulated. Especially early on, our first 3 or 4 games, that's going to be determined on how guys will get better right now on their own, and then also be determined once we get together and get back to having practices and who competes and who meshes with each other, who blends the best, and those type of things.
One last Coach Musselman.
I've got one.
Yep. We'll take these two, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Yes, yep.